Thailand is one of Southeast Asia's leading plastic waste producers, but the real crisis is unfolding in places like this in rural Thailand. Only about 30% of Thailand's plastic waste is actually recycled, and that is even less here in the rural areas because it simply lacks the infrastructure for that recycling. There are very few initiatives here for people to separate out their waste, and so a lot of it will end up here in dumps like this. These are local dumps. Much of it is also burned here in the rural areas. Some of it is just discarded on the side of the road as well, which we see a lot. Our village actually cleans up our roads twice a year, and still around our property we see a lot of plastic just thrown on the ground from people coming by on motorbikes and whatnot. Today we're going to explore this problem much deeper, and we're going to show how this issue doesn't just affect local ecosystems but also has a major impact on human health down the line. Now, as with many things in rural Thailand, things are very much stuck in the past. And it seems that packaging and single-use plastics have arrived here long before the means of dealing with it ever did. Of course, many of the locals used to wrap things in banana leaves in the old days, which could be disposed of, thrown away, and would biodegrade quite rapidly. That's not the case for the plastics that are in use today in many stores such as 7-Eleven, Lotus, and packaging from items that were bought online via Lazada and Shopee, arriving here daily into the village. Now, despite the low recycle rates, Thailand actually has a very high collection rate, all in all, at 88.8%, which means that the issue is not that the rubbish is not being collected, but that it's not being recycled. And that means it ends up staying in landfills, entering rivers, and causing wider pollution to the ecosystem. The World Bank also reports that just over 70% of exposed, mismanaged waste comes from here in the rural areas. Now, that sounds surprising at first because when people think about plastic pollution, they usually think about Bangkok, tourists, and beaches and big cities. But out here, the problem is more visible. The same plastic packaging reaches the village, the same bags, bottles and food wrappers are used, but the systems behind that plastic are much thinner. There are fewer places to separate it, fewer places to recycle it, and less money moving through the system overall. So rural Thailand becomes the place where the plastic problem is much easier to see. Here in rural Thailand, there is an issue of education as well. There are some people that will actually just burn the plastic, and they will even sit by the fire of burning plastic and they will breathe that plastic in, completely unaware of the damage that that is doing to them and their body. I've actually offered to anybody that's burning their plastic that I will pay the waste collection bill every year. It's not that I'm super philanthropic, it's that we don't want that smoke in the air, and it's very cheap. For the whole year to have your garbage collected is only 300 baht. But do remember that some people are so poor here that they can't even afford that. Now, although burning is one way that plastic ends up leaving the village via smoke and ash, the bigger route is actually water. What you find is that plastic doesn't just end up in the rivers and waterways here, but during the rainy season, when rains come in super heavy, plastic that was sat around for months can often get washed up into those same waterways. Out of the 428,000 tons of plastic per year in Thailand that is mismanaged, the World Bank estimates 9,300 tons of plastic enter the sea every year. In very wet years, this can actually rise to 14,300 tons. And this is not just a rural issue. Bangkok has a very similar problem in a different form. 10 districts in Bangkok accounted for over half of the exposed, mismanaged plastics. And it was those 10 particular districts that were very close to drainage pathways. This Bangkok data suggests that the plastic pollution is not just about how much waste a place produces, it is also about where that waste escapes. If plastics escape near drains, canals or rivers, it's a much faster route to the sea. I've got diving friends in Koh Mak and Koh Chang that tell me that this is the biggest problem that is facing the surrounding oceans with Thailand at the moment, is that every year they see more and more plastic in the oceans. In fact, you only need to walk onto the beach and see that there is a lot of plastic that has been washed up on shore. Some of the waste you can actually see Arabic writing on, so the plastics have traveled very, very far across the sea. But also the marine life is affected. The turtles eat the plastic and the fish eat the plastic. That gives them a sensation of being full, and then they die of starvation. One of the most famous cases in Thailand was in 2018 when a juvenile pilot whale died in southern Thailand after swallowing more than 80 plastic bags. The plastic weighed around 8 kilograms, and rescuers said they tried to save the animal, but it later died. The autopsy is what showed how serious the blockage was. Now, just before we continue, subscribers to this channel will note that I've chosen my partners, the people I work with on this channel, very carefully. I've never tried to flog you guys some kind of crypto coin or a number of other things that have been offered to me. And that's because I choose partners that I use myself, things that you will get some benefit out of in your day-to-day life. And one of those partners that subscribers have had the most benefits from over the years is Surfshark VPN. If you do travel a lot like I do, and you connect into many different Wi-Fi, different restaurants and hotels and airports, you connect, you get on with your business, you sometimes open your banking apps, your social media, and you think nothing of it. But the truth is you don't actually know who else is connected to that network. And it's not necessarily about some obvious hacking attack. It's that websites are building profiles on you. They're seeing your location and they're tracking your activity. And that is why I use Surfshark VPN. I keep it running in the background. Actually, I don't even have to think about it, but it hides my location, it encrypts my data, and it keeps me protected no matter where I'm connected in the world. Surfshark give me an offer to give to you. It's going to get you 4 months extra. Simply use code word BAMBOO at checkout. Download the app or go to www.surfshark.com/bamboo, and that's a money back guarantee. So if it doesn't work out for you, you get your money back. Those links are below in the pinned comment and the description. But long before this plastic ever even reaches a dump or a river or the sea, it usually begins somewhere completely normal. Single-use plastic is absolutely everywhere here, including at the 7-Eleven, where even fruits are wrapped in plastic. And don't forget, most of the population is getting their kapu yen, their iced coffee, or their cha thai, their Thai tea, in a disposable cup every single day, and that cup is going to be discarded. One of the biggest problems when it comes to single-use plastic is the use of plastic bags. There was some initiative from the Thai government to reduce this use of plastic bags. I think they targeted 2030 in order to do this. But what I've seen here on the ground is basically, at one point you couldn't get plastic bags and you ended up carrying stuff out of the shop in my local Lotus here. Then it seemed they tried to dissuade people from using plastic bags by charging a fee. And now it seems that people just use the plastic bag and pay this fee, and the corporations are making a profit, really. Before, they were paying for the plastic bag that people were using, and now people are paying for the plastic bag. Personally, I use these big reusable bags simply because they carry way more, and I've noticed that a lot of the supermarkets are only selling these small plastic bags, probably so you have to get more of them. Up to now, we've been talking about all the visible plastic in the dumps, rivers and beaches. But plastic breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually breaking down into microplastics and nanoplastics that can enter the human body through food and water. And this is becoming a serious health issue that is being studied very carefully in the modern day. A major New England Journal of Medicine study looked at people having plaque removed from their carotid artery. Researchers actually found microplastics and nanoplastics inside some of that artery plaque. And people with plastic in the plaque were much more likely to have a heart attack or die of a stroke. Reported risk was around 4.5 times higher with the microplastics present. Another study by Nature Medicine looked at human autopsy samples. Researchers compared brain, liver and kidney tissue and found that brain samples contain far higher levels of microplastics and nanoplastics than liver or kidney samples. Much of this was actually polyethylene, used in plastic bags, wrapping and bottles. It was noted that some brains could contain as much as a credit card's worth of plastic. Studies are also showing that this problem is getting worse over time. Researchers compared newer human brain samples with older samples, and they found that microplastics in these brains were higher in 2024 than the samples taken in 2016. The study actually suggested the rise was around 50% over just 8 years. And finally, a 2025 study looked at placentas from full-term and premature births. Researchers looked at 100 full-term placentas and 75 preterm placentas. The preterm placentas had much higher plastic levels, about 203 micrograms per gram versus just 130 micrograms per gram in full-term placentas. This was somewhat surprising because you would expect that a longer pregnancy would accumulate more plastic and not less, as the findings were. They also found several types of plastic, including PET from bottles and PVC, polyurethane and polycarbonate. The study suggests that there is some association with microplastics and premature births. Now, it's important to note as well that many wealthier countries around the world will actually export their plastic, and somebody else has got to deal with it and do all the recycling. Thailand doesn't do that. In fact, historically, people used to import waste into Thailand for it to be managed. In 2025, Thailand actually banned the import of plastic waste over concerns about toxic pollution. Thai customs officials said that more than 1.1 million tons of plastic scraps were imported between 2018 and 2021. Imports of plastic were often mismanaged in Thailand, with many factories burning the waste rather than recycling it, and this obviously led to more damage to human health and the environment. And so this is not a case of pointing the finger at Thailand and claiming negligence. Some countries are able to pay the problem away, whereas Thailand is not. It has to manage it here. And in the rural areas where budgets are already thin, taxation is low, and there's not a lot of people paying into a system of disposal or waste management, it really does become a question of money more than anything else. Who can afford to not live with a mounting plastic problem versus who has to tolerate the amount of plastic that's being put around them into their lived environment on a basis of not being able to afford to do anything about it. So this has been a look into Thailand's plastic problem, and it really is not an issue of blame or superiority or anything like that. Indeed, sometimes people ask, why do I report on these things? And it's not true that only I report on them. There are many Thai YouTubers and many Thai news outlets that report on these things too. Maybe you're just getting recommended this because it's in English. But there are many Thai people concerned about this, and there are initiatives in place in the government that are trying to tackle this problem that seems to be getting worse every year. So it really is just a look at the facts and something that we live with here in rural Thailand, and that we're trying to manage ourselves not only as a family but as a local community. Examples of this are the village cleanup. They're what we do here as a family in our waste disposal, trying not to use single-use plastics. You may have seen on the channel that we filter our own water, which means there's no requirement for any plastic bottles or anything like that. We use glass bottles. This is also to limit the amount of exposure we have to microplastics. And with the kids, 3 times a year, we'll have them go around picking up pieces of plastic in our area, and they'll get 1 baht per piece of plastic. This helps us maintain control of the area. You do what you can. I think there are very few people in the world that are very innocent of using plastics. Maybe they stopped using them when they were in the 50s or 60s or something, but you've still got 40 years of using single-use plastics. I think it's something that the whole human psyche is perhaps waking up to and actually should be worried about in the coming years. And I hope that the problem can be solved not only here in Thailand but worldwide, and we come up with a way to reduce the number of single-use plastics and improve not only the marine and wildlife but our personal health also.